Here we have Dame Diana Rigg and
yeah.
the lovely Natalie Dormer.
Our name through the dirt. Put us in our place.
I love the Tyrells. I think they are perfect. Exactly, like, Natalie does the most amazing job, but of course, Diana Rigg just nails this part. And all of the interactions between
Olenna? Yeah,
and Tywin Lannister, like their
Yeah.
scenes last year were just...
Put the pen down, dear.
Yeah, that's what's fun. I mean, we have, we have the books that we work off of, and as we go on, for all kinds of reasons, the show universe kind of becomes more of its own thing. But what we have is we have this amazing set of characters that George created, and we get to sort of pair them in different situations that George, didn't pair them in necessarily. And it's always
Right.
It's almost like
Yeah.
playing with playing with action figures and getting to go, ooh, wait, what if we put Olenna in a scene with Tywin, what would happen? And
Yeah.
we did that a fair amount this year, combining a lot of characters that don't meet in the books.
Yeah. And like, people love to be like, oh, this didn't happen, or da. But it's actually about using, like, the amazing assets that you guys have and, like, showcasing those amazing talents.
But where do you decide to start? Because again, there's so much to start with
When do we decide to start?
with the adaptation.
Well, David got the books first and started reading, what was it?
Oh, this was 7 years ago. First of all, apologies, because Elvis got us drunk upstairs.
That's not. This is
I
iced
have
tea.
no idea what you're talking about.
This is iced tea.
So
That's good dragon.
this is gonna be a sloppy interview.
Seemed like a good idea.
So yeah, 7 years ago. 7 years ago.
I mean, because again, that moment of Ned to me feels like an HBO moment. That's the kind of thing that I would think would make them bite rather than push them away from it. But that thing you're talking about, that sense of that lack of sentimentality, that complete ruthlessness, is part of the fun of it. There's also the thing that Lord of the Rings has, is that sense of band of brothers, and in these books, these alliances are constantly being torn apart, and that's got to be part of the fun of the writing of it too, isn't it?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, I think definitely setting the table with all these great characters and then having an opportunity, especially in the show, to say, well, what would happen if this one ended up with this one? And then Robert and Cersei are never together in the books. What would happen if Robert and Cersei ended? They're married. They must, even as much as they hate each other, they must find themselves in a room together alone sometimes. What happens between them, And it just seems like moving what we did in season 2, where we put Arya with Tywin. That doesn't happen in the books nearly as,
That's what I was saying to you backstage. There's so much stuff you guys have done. It's almost like, I mean, at what point did the show really take on a life of its own for you, moving away from the books? It seems to have happened pretty early on.
I think part of it is when you work with the actors and you get to know them really well and you see their strengths and you see how they inhabit those characters, and then you just think, well, why wouldn't you put Maisie Williams and Charles Dance in a room together? Because that pairing is just so phenomenal. I want to see those two together.
As you'll probably recall, Season 2 of the TV series invented multiple scenes not in the books of Tywin Lannister interacting with Arya Stark at Harrenhal. If you didn't read the books, these are completely invented. And TV show apologists keep pointing back to these when defending Benioff and Weiss's changes, even by, Season 6 and 7. You've all, please tell me in the comments, you've all encountered people like this going, well, yeah, they ruined Dorne, but weren't those invented Tywin Arya Harrenhal scenes great? As the series is winding up, assessing their run on it, people will bring up things from Season 2 as a defense for Seasons 5 through 7, when if anything, the accusation is they peaked after Season 4, if not earlier, and Seasons 5 through 7 have turned into a mess. That's ignoring and deflecting that criticism that they peaked. So, after Season 5, Benioff and Weiss's apologists have a very selective memory because they're in denial. They don't want to remember the bad scenes. They didn't when they were fresh. So, while admittedly some of these Arya Tywin scenes at Harrenhal were pleasant, even to me, others were criticized as just filler that didn't really advance the plot, but at the same time cutting book Harrenhal material. We didn't realize at the time they're showing off the actors, so they'll cut out Tyrion material from the books, which is good, and then put in invented Tyrion scenes and then claim, oh, time constraints. You have Tyrion scenes, they're just not the book equivalent. So some of these were admittedly good. For me, like an exposition scene of saying, oh, this is the history of Harrenhal, that Aegon Targaryen blasted it with his dragon fire and killed Harren the Black, or Tywin explaining on screen what happened to his grandfather, to his father Tytos, Tyrion's grandfather. But you could have worked that in with other characters, but some of them were pretty lousy. Like, the worst was the big scene of Arya trying to avoid Littlefinger recognizing her by hiding her face as the camera lingers on Maisie's face with no dialogue, because they're showing off Maisie's face, emoting, oh no, is he going to see her, and playing off the worry on her face. It adds nothing. It doesn't add new exposition. It was cheap tension. And on top of that, people were annoyed that, like, Littlefinger couldn't plausibly get there in enough time. I thought he could because they have control of the highways. He's one traveler. But enough people were upset about it that this invented scene doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's just another symptom of the sloppiness of it. I don't even care how fast you could get there or not. Whatever, months pass. It's even if there weren't issues with that. It's the scene itself is just, oh no, Maisie making scared face as the camera focuses on her and she's trying to hide her face from Littlefinger. This didn't add anything, and you have to accept that this was part of the Arya Tywin scenes. They weren't all good. Though I would say some were good, they weren't all good. But even if all the Season 2 Arya Tywin scenes were great, which they're not, that doesn't outweigh other unrelated bad storylines. Particularly years later. Dorne, Sansa, Stannis, the White Hunt. I mean, you'll hear show apologists who are increasingly the ones who are left or fanatics, but Benioff and Weiss are good writers. Look at the Season 2 Arya Tywin scenes. That was 5 years ago. And they say it like a prayer. I really mean it like a prayer, like in a cult but the leader can't be wrong. It's just, you're reciting it by, there's no conscious thought. It's a thought-terminating cliche of just, but the Arya Tywin Harrenhal scenes were good, as a defense against anything. Now, as my subscribers have probably guessed, these scenes were invented to show off the actors, Maisie Williams and Charles Dance. They have nothing to do with the fictional characters, adding wonderful nuance to them. In fact, at times they behave badly out of character in them. And then some people in the comments go, oh, well, why not show off the actors? As I've tried to explain in my other videos, you mean show them off well with good writing. You're just pointing the camera at Maisie's face and saying, go. That isn't showing them off. That isn't even good acting, or it's not good material. So what I did was I was going through all of their old interviews, and I found a clip of a panel Benioff and Weiss did where they bluntly admit word for word the Arya Tywin Harrenhal scenes were to show off Maisie Williams and Charles Dance.
I think part of it is when you work with the actors and you get to know them really well and you see their strengths and you see how they inhabit those characters, and then you just think, well, why wouldn't you put Maisie Williams and Charles Dance in a room together? Because that pairing is just so phenomenal. I want to see those two together.
So this is why they ever changed anything in the TV show. And when you line it up in a row, you see the pattern and it reinforces itself. No, these aren't isolated things done for different random whims. It is all one reason. Show off the actors, repeated and played out in different ways. Rewrite Dorne from scratch to show off that Indira Varma can do angry. And we have cited quotes for each of these things that were changed. Dorne, Rob Talissa, Cersei, Stannis, Littlefinger, we like showing off Aidan Gillen making creepy face. Arya, Maisie can emote a great badass face. Jon Snow and Daenerys, these great brooding, increasingly non-verbal scenes, because they're just showing off them making a frowning face, staring meaningfully at the horizon. All of this. And particularly as it relates to this video, Tyrion and Tywin. And Tyrion, well, they never actually said this earlier, I'm gonna address this. But you can tell, like, Peter can deliver funny dialogue really well. So, like, we've seen, Tyrion's just this jokey, not serious character from Season 5 onwards. But here, just adding it to the citation list, Tywin, we love Charles Dance.